Welcome back, family. Today we are doing the sojourn of the psyche, the journey of the soul from death to life, the constellation of Capricornus. So today, what we're looking at here on Stellarium is asteroid 16 Psyche, and we see that this asteroid is marking the division of Capricorn. Capricorn is a two-part sign. What we see is in the first section, or the larger temple triangle, is the goat with bended knee. Um, we're going to do a quick dive into this constellation, but this front section is considered a sacrifice, or the death of the sacrifice. And then the tail section is a fish with its tail in movement as if it is coming to life. This tail section is considered a resurrection or new life sign, and you can see this other temple or triangle here in the back side. And this constellation of Capricorn is one of the divisions in the heavens of the Mazzaroth. If we look at the constellations in the ancient times, there was three constellations. We're going to go really quick to the heavens proclaim, and we're going to look here at Capricornus, and we're going to quickly look at these divisions in the heavens. So we have Capricornus as the atoning sacrifice and resurrection. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go down and we're going to look at what is said here. In the first book, we had the work of the Redeemer set forth as it is concerned his own glorious person, as it concerned his own glorious person. The first chapter in the book of the Redeemed is Capricornus, the goat of atonement slain for the redeemed. Here in the second book, we see the result of his humiliation and conflict and victory, the sufferings of Christ, and the blessings they poured for his redeemed people. This second book opens with the goat and closes with the ram, two animals of sacrifice, while the two middle chapters are both connected with fish. The third deacon of Capricornus is a fish, Delphinus. There, again, a fish, Piscis australis, which is the southern fish. In the next sign, Aquarius, and then the following sign is Pisces, or the fishes, so that the redeemed multitude are presented through this second book. So we see here we have 4 chapters. The first chapter we have a blessing procured, their blessings insured, their blessings in abeyance, and their blessings enjoyed. And in the ancient zodiacs, we find the goat with a fish's tail, zodiac of Dendera and Esne. In Egypt, it is half goat and half fish, and it is there called Hupenius, which means the place of the sacrifice. In the Indian zodiac, it is the walking goat traversed by a fish. The Hebrew name for the constellation Capricornus is Gedi, which means a kid or a goat. It also means the cut off, the meaning of atonement. The sea goat Capricorn, the Latin Capricornus for capper, goat, cornu, and horn, is second only to Cancer as the least visible constellation of the zodiac. Depictions of a goat or a goat fish have been found on Babylonian tablets around 3,000 years old, or 1000 BC. Capricornus is a strange creature, the front half of which is a goat and the rear half a fish. The goat is a fallen position with one leg doubled under his body. The head is bent forward and is in a dying situation. On the other hand, the tail of the fish is vigorous and living. This represents Christ coming forth out of his death. In the goat, we have the atoning sacrifice. In the fish, we have the people from whom the atonement is made. When we come to the sign Pisces, we shall see clearly that it points to the multitudes of the redeemed host. The goat is bowing its head as though falling down in death. The right leg is folded underneath the body, and it seems unable to rise with the left. The tail of the fish, on the other hand, seems full of vigor and life. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go back here to Capricornus. We have a better understanding of the constellation, and we have asteroid Psyche marking the division in this constellation. We also see that at this time that the moon is in the house of Capricorn. Let's go back to Psyche, and we can see we have Psyche on meridian 11/7/2024. And what we're going to do is we are going to watch as Psyche moves through the temple of resurrection. And when we do this, we look for the location where it begins on ecliptic and where it ends on ecliptic. So we're going to go through this division of time when Psyche is aligned on meridian with the stars that mark the temple. And I found some very interesting things. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to look at the Wikipedia for the asteroid Psyche. And I noticed some very interesting things on the image that NASA made for this asteroid. And I'm sure that most of you can see this right away, but it just stood out to me, and I couldn't help but notice. It seems as though there are multiple 8s that are on the surface of this asteroid, and it looks as to me that there's a very strong 88 here, and it just stood right out to me, and so I wanted to show you that, and that this asteroid is obviously being shown to us with this for a reason. I'm going to have to take this back down real quick here, and going to bring you to this Wikipedia for 16 Psyche. This is the asteroid Psyche, and you can read all about this asteroid, and it has some connections that are very, very interesting. But I'm going to let you take your time to go dig into this. There is some very interesting things said about this asteroid. And what we're going to do now is we're going to quickly go over some of the codes that are associated with this psyche, an asteroid psyche, so that we can get a little bit better understanding of how it fits into this storyline. So the first thing we're going to do is look at the codes that I found just for Psyche. I go into a inheritance, the Pentecost, names in the Lamb's Book of Life. Be the bride of Christ. Prepare for coming. Bible codes. Full moon pair. Bride, the golden ticket. The chosen Pisces. To defeat the dragon. Okay, now let's look at the codes that I found for asteroid Psyche. I found Phoenix Rising, John the Baptist, portal activated, fake alien invasion, Yeshaya. For those of you who don't know what that is, Yesha is the ancient name, another way of saying Christ's name, which was Yeshua in the Hebrew language, but the Nazarenes didn't always speak in Hebrew, and they had other ways of presenting that name, and Yeshaya is a form of Yesha that means my salvation. Yesha is salvation. You can look it up. It's I'd have to look. I'll have to check and put it in the description, but it's you can look it up in the Hebrew. Another one is spiritual war, gathering of Christ's church, and the great shepherd. I also found a code for Psyche that is the mark. And so we have some very interesting codes that fit into play with this asteroid. I've been following this asteroid for a very long time, and it seems to also be always in the right place at the right time. And so I wanted to take a look at this transition of Psyche through this resurrection temple and just see if there was any other alignments that I found, because it was marking a time frame that was very interesting to me with the date connections. So the next thing I wanted to do is talk about a couple different things that happened during this time frame. Some of the things that really come to a head when we're looking in the heavens for the signs of the escape of the bride. And these are all signs that are associated with the escape of the bride, because we are looking at a connection with the bride and the resurrection. And so this part of Capricorn being the resurrection temple, or the backside of Capricorn being the fish of new life. We know we have been tracking all the signs within the fish constellations, or the water constellations, and this right here begins all of the signs of the water, which are associated with the fishes. If we look here in the heavens, we can see how from this point we have the backside of Capricorn being a fish. We have Aquarius, which is a water sign. We have Piscis australis, which is the southern fish. We have Pisces with the two bands of the fish, and then we have Cetus, which is the sea serpent. And all of these are water signs, and what we're looking at is a story of the fishes, but again, this is a story of Christ and the 153 fish, we'll call it, and this is also a marriage sign. And what we're seeing here in the constellation of Capricorn is the bride is showing up into the picture as soon as Psyche makes this division of time. And what we're looking at is this time that Psyche goes through this period as a marker for me. It is showing me some signs during this time that we need to look into the heavens for, because there's more to the story, and we need to keep looking up in order to have the complete picture, because there's things happening in the heavens that are showing us some signs, and we need to keep looking up. It's not just about holy days or certain physical human calendars that we have here on the planet. There are ways of looking into the heavens for a greater understanding of our division of time. And a lot of us are stuck on very specific calendars, and it creates an inability to see the whole picture. So instead of just looking at one calendar, what I do is I look at all of the calendars, and I look at how they play with the signs in the heavens. there's multiple calendars that are lining up with certain signs. Um, One of the things that we see with the Hebrew calendar is its alignments with the solar eclipses, and many see that as a sign that the Hebrew calendar is on track, but you've got to understand what these signs are. Um, Eclipses have always been signs of doom, not of blessing. And so we have a judgment sign, basically. And to me, it is showing us that there's a certain house that is under judgment for its modern ways and its destructive patterns. And we'll just leave it at that. We need to understand these things from a greater light, and that greater light is looking into the heavens for our understanding, because day by day this is pouring out speech, and what I have found is that these asteroids and comets play a big role in us being able to see these signs, with the wandering stars, which are the planets, and the sun and the moon all playing major roles, and these asteroids and comets all playing secondary roles. But they end up bringing more light to the story when you see their positions fulfilling things that we're looking for in the heavens. They Some of these things are just it's an impossibility for them to line up when they do. And so the only way this can happen is if they were placed there for a very specific purpose at that specific time. So we're going to look at Psyche. We know that Psyche, if we go here and we look at this main belt asteroid information that's up in the left hand corner for 16 Psyche, and we read that top section, it says Psyche is the Greek term for soul. And to me, this was the sojourn of the soul through the temple of resurrection. And this is the journey of the soul from death to life, which is resurrection. And we see that the moon being in the house at this time is showing us that this is a sign for the bride. And so I wanted to focus on this and bring this to light, and we're going to look at some of the alignments that are happening during this time. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the marks of days. So we have this beginning on 11/7, and then we have this finishing here on the 22nd. Let's bring this on meridian, and this will be our mark here. So we are looking at the 7th through the 22nd as the time that Psyche is transitioning between these stars that mark the temple of resurrection. And what I found during this time frame was very, very interesting. The first thing that I found was that comet Pan-STARRS on the 13th aligns with the Hoopa, and that was a really great sign for me. Because I'm on Stellarium Web, it doesn't always work out for me to be able to pull up these comets. Sometimes it's really hard, and I could not pull that up today. So I'm going to let any of you who have Stellarium, if you go to November the 13th, 24, comet R2 Pan-STARRS aligns with the Hoopa, which is the constellation of Ophiuchus. And let's go look at that really quick. And we can see here, if you look at the constellation of Ophiuchus, his body section looks exactly like a Hebrew Hoopa. And in the ancient times, this is where the marriage ceremony happened, in the Hoopa. And if you look at the right leg line that comes out of the Hoopa, this right leg line goes directly into the Golden Gate. And this leg line is considered the exit of the Hoopa. And so when we see the wandering stars and the sun and the moon transition through this point of the ecliptic, then we can see how these things look as though these wandering stars and the sun and the moon are coming out of the Hoopa. And if you look at the left leg of Ophiuchus, it goes right into the claw of Scorpius. And this has always been considered a harvest sign. This area where the claws of Scorpius are, they align directly with the star in the center of the Hoopa in the body of Ophiuchus. And if you come directly down from that star to the tip of the top crab's claw, then you have the entrance of the Hoopa. And this area in between the legs of Ophiuchus is considered a place of safety, and it is an extension of the Hoopa down into the ecliptic, where the planets and the sun and the moon transition through. You can see that red line of the ecliptic, and we can just quickly go through and we can mark the sun, and then we can show you how this goes. We'll just say that right there, the sun is entering into the Hoopa, and then you have the sun exiting the Hoopa and entering into the Golden Gate. So if you can go find that comet alignment, it is on the 13th of November, marking the Hoopa. And then we have Venus, bright morning star, is entering into the temple on the 17th. And so that is another major sign. Let's say 2:30 there. Here we have Venus is in the tabernacle, and this has always been a point in the heavens that is very important. We're looking at a direct alignment. The planets and the sun and the moon don't always move exactly through the ecliptic right on the line, other than the sun. Sometimes they're up and sometimes they're down, and it just depends on their movements through the heavens. And so when I saw Venus aligned directly here in the temple, it was really a strong sign. So I wanted to look at the rest of the signs at this time, and it brought me to another sign that happens directly before Venus enters into the temple. And so what we're going to do is we're going to look at the moon, and we're going to go back a day, and we're going to look at the full moon. If you look over on the left hand side, and you'll see that the moon is at 100% phase here on ecliptic, with the meridian lined up, and we see the moon is directly inside of the Pleiades. And this was a very powerful sign to me. This happens on the 16th, just after midnight. Actually, it's in. Let's look at this timing. We're going to just go ahead and go back, and it looks as if the moon enters into the Pleiades right there. We can even come back another couple minutes right there. There we go. So it looks as if late on the 15th, the moon enters into the Pleiades, and then it transitions out of the Pleiades on the 16th, just after midnight. And that was another very powerful sign for me, because we have multiple wandering stars that are in the constellation of Taurus at this time. We have Uranus, which is heaven, and we have the King Jupiter is between the horns. And this was a very important sign to me, especially if we're looking at the moon with the white rabbit. This is a full moon, and we're seeing this sign line up directly before Venus enters into the tabernacle. Another thing that I saw at this exact time is, let's go to the sun, and let's look at the sun's position. Now, if you understand the Mazzaroth and these constellation signs, a lot of them are depicted with modern understandings, but this Libra constellation in ancient times was also depicted as an altar. And so what we see here is the sun has just stepped off the altar. We can go here, we can see that the sun is just outside of the altar in heaven at the same time that Mercury is in the hoopah. The messenger is inside of the hoopah, and the bridegroom is just stepped off the altar at this time. And we have Venus about to enter into the tabernacle. Now, Venus represents both the bridegroom, which is Messiah, and also has a feminine aspect, which can be looked at as the bride. So Venus essentially can be looked at as the bride and the bridegroom. And the sun is another depiction of the bridegroom, and we see that the bridegroom is directly at the altar, while the messenger is in the hoopah, pointing us to the marriage ceremony. All of this is wedding signs, and these things all are happening within this period of time where Psyche is going through this resurrection area of the constellation of Capricorn. So let's move forward. We know that Venus enters the temple on the 17th. We know that the full moon is in the Pleiades at midnight on the 16th, and the bridegroom steps off of the altar on the 16th. Then the next thing that I found was very, very interesting. Now, many of you know that I have been following this Vesta asteroid for a very, very long time, probably more than almost any of them. And when I made these connections with Vesta, the codes that I found just were they're too much, and they just stood out to me with the stories in the heavens that were being presented to me. It was almost as if I was watching a play, and this asteroid kept lining up with everything that had to do with the virgins. And so I've always just looked at Vesta as the virgins. And to me, seeing Vesta in this position, we're going to go ahead and look at the 19th. We're going to be looking at Vesta entering into the womb of Virgo at midnight as it transitions into the 19th. And we see that Vesta is entering into the womb. And what I found next was just too much. Because on the same day that Vesta, the virgins, enter into the womb. We see Metis. Let's find our time. Okay, it looks like we'll just go ahead and line this up with Spica. So what we're looking at is Metis aligned with Spica on the same day that Vesta enters into the womb. Metis exits the womb. Now, if you've been following me for a while, then you know that Metis equates to the wedding. So Metis is wedding and Vesta is virgins. We're looking at more wedding signs, and it happening here in the womb of Virgo on this day is very, very powerful. These are very, very powerful wedding signs for us to be looking at. Another thing that showed up at this exact time is you have Comet Biela that enters into the Virgo constellation. So what I wanted to do is look at the codes again for Comet Biela, because we are now looking at more signs associated with this, and any more information we could get might help us to understand these signs a little better. So the codes for Comet Biela are dedication, matrix. Now again, a womb can be considered a matrix. You can look that up. Blackout, harpazo, Armageddon, bride of God, left behind, remnant, Philadelphia, Aleph, Tav. So those are our codes for Biela, Comet Biela, and Comet Biela is marking Virgo at this time. So we have some very, very powerful signs showing up on the 19th, and this is all within our window of time that Psyche, or the soul, is making its journey through the temple of resurrection, pointing us to a time frame of resurrection in the heavens. So then on the last day, which is the 22nd, we're going to look at serpents, and what we're going to look at is Comet A3 Tsuchinshan Atlas, making its alignment with the tail of serpents. Go ahead and get it right here. We'll just, right there, we'll say we're looking at Comet 2023 A3 aligning with the tail of serpents on the very last day that the asteroid is in the temple of resurrection. Now, we know that the enemy is cast down on the day of the escape, and we see here a sign of that this enemy is being grabbed by the tail, and when you are going to throw a snake, you pick it up by the tail and you throw it. You don't grab it by its head, or it might bite you, or by any other part of the body. If you grab it by the very tail, then you have the ability to whip that snake around. And so this was a sign to me, happening on the very last day of the asteroid being in the Temple of Resurrection. And we have other signs that are continuing after this, but this part of the heavens is showing a very important sign to us. Now remember, we were talking about this Hoopa sign, and we see that Mercury the messenger is inside of this Hoopa at this time. And we're going to do a real quick look at Mercury, because if we look at this movement of Mercury, okay, let's take a look at this movement, which is called a retrograde, and we're looking at Mercury making a retrograde motion on the 26th, and it's marking the Hoopa. It is literally stopping and going in the opposite direction right before the exit of the Hoopa. This is the messenger planet, showing us or marking the Hoopa as the sun enters into the Hoopa. So now we see the sun is in the claws of Scorpius, and this is the harvest section. If you look into the Mazzaroth and you look at the signs in the Mazzaroth, this has always been considered a harvest sign, and we know that that when the planets transition out of the Hoopa, they go directly into the Golden Gate, and this is the Milky Way in the heaven. And so this section is a perfect sign for the wedding, as the bridegroom enters into the Hoopa. And we see that Venus is under the wing of Sagittarius at this time. And so these are additional signs that we'll be doing more work on, but I wanted to show you that during this time of Psyche, we have some serious, these are very serious signs that are showing up at this time that Psyche transitions through this Capricorn period. Now we can continue to watch Psyche transition through let's look this up. It always will cause me to lose this. We can see that Psyche continues through this constellation all the way into December. sorry about all of this, but I don't have, I believe it's about right here. Yeah, okay. So we're looking at Psyche coming out of the constellation of Capricorn around December the 17th. So we could continue to look for the rest of the signs that are associated with this, the resurrection, continuing all the way into the middle of December. And there are other signs that I have found that we will be going over in another video, but I wanted to bring all of this to the body because we are looking at resurrection signs and wedding signs, and the story continues. So let's keep looking up, and let's keep our heads on a swivel. There are things happening here that are very, very important for us to keep watch over, with the wars and the rumors of wars and the things that are happening on the political stage. The stage is set for something very big to happen. And the last thing that we're going to do is we are going to look at Iris. And if we go back to this period of time that we were looking at with this alignment, we can see how Iris is also there in the alignment, and it is in the constellation of Aquarius, which is another water sign. And Iris, we know, is the eye. It's there watching over this period, and it makes its movement directly with Psyche, as if Psyche and Iris are together. So keep looking to the heavens. Keep your eyes to the skies. Much love, family.